Okay, looks like we got about a minute.
Gotta make sure you mute your microphone unless you're gonna talk. If your phone rings or if you cough or
Okay. Looks like we can get started here. Okay, well, welcome back, everyone. This is the first session of a hybrid style meeting for the ACRD. And so today on September 22nd, 2021, we're welcoming people back into our boardroom. Now, initially, I was hoping to be there in person myself, but given the sick nature of the children and people in my house, I figured it'd be safe just to stay away, even though I'm feeling fine myself. That being said, because we have a hybrid style meeting in place, we do have staff and some directors in attendance at our boardroom today. So they'll be testing out the new technology, zooming in on the speakers and so on and so forth. Today we have our acting CAO and finance person, Terry Fung, and we have Wendy Thompson as well for our staff. And the directors that we have in person today are Diane Bodner from Cherry Creek. And from Long Beach, we have Director Cal Roberts, who's just in the kind of 12 o'clock position there. From what I understand, and I can be corrected if I'm wrong, Wendy or Terry, is that when folks are speaking, they have to use the microphones and then the cameras will zoom in on them. Now, once they're done speaking, however, it's important that they turn off their microphones to make sure that the camera doesn't stay stuck on you during the discussions. Apparently, that's something that happens when, due to the system involved, it zooms in on where the sound is coming from.
Mr. Chair, yes, that is correct.
Like so. We do have George Rose, our technician, in place, so he'll be moving around in the background if need be. So hopefully we'll be in good shape. I'd also like to recognize that we'll be conducting our business today on the territories of principally the Hupatchis and the Tahltan First Nations. Our major presence, our office presence, and some of our facilities are located on their territories, as well as the territories of the Nuu-chah-nulth people, including Monmouth Treaty Nations, some of which are in attendance today. Okay, now, before we get into the agenda, I would just like to reiterate a pair of things. First of which is that we will be recognizing September 30th as the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. So the organization will be closing its doors and taking that time to really contemplate reconciliation and relationships between Indigenous peoples and the rest of Canada, especially within the provincial context. It's really important because an overwhelming majority of territory within British Columbia is unceded territory, and therefore it has not been settled in any way, shape, or form from a legal or political standpoint. Some places, however, like the territories or the community of Bamfield within Huu territory is ceded territory, and they have a place in the territory in forever. And so that's a special relationship that is something that may include others in the future in whatever shape or form. But that National Day is the day in which we will contemplate what our relationships will look like moving forward together, personally, community to community, within the province and nationally. And I think that's a very good thing from the perspective of having days to celebrate being together, having days to contemplate and look at how our relationship will be moving forward together. I think that makes the space that we need, both in time and in our minds and physically even. Because we're conducting our meeting from a hybrid perspective, this is something where folks can attend in the boardroom if they, I think, pre-register and show up, although we'll be using a mask protocol, much in the same way that you would see in a restaurant, especially for our directors, because it's their place of work. You don't need to wear a mask when you're there. sitting at your desk, but when you're moving to the washroom or moving about the room, you should mask up and keep moving or keep doing it that way. Folks can be in the gallery there. I think they're required to wear masks until they speak, if they speak. And we can have people attending this meeting as per how it has been online by registering to be an attendee at the meeting itself. And you can provide for questions or comments to the ACRD by sending an email to responses@acrd.bc.ca. And that's something we'll continue to do as long as we're holding hybrid meetings as well. So I see that we have 3 attendees. We have everyone in place. So let's move on to the agenda. I think we do have one late item to be added under item 8G, which is a request for decision. It's regarding burning regulation bylaws and the communication plan thereof. And I think that's pretty much it. Is there anything else, Wendy, that we need to contemplate?
Mr. Chair, I'm not aware of any other late items.
Okay. Director.
Motion to, oops, sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Shannon. Director Shannon, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just, I know we don't have a hospital district meeting today, but it's McHappy Day today. So if we can throw in the agenda somewhere, just to have a quick chat about that, because for McHappy Day this year, portions from all the sales are going to the pediatric care unit within the West Coast General Hospital Foundation's emergency department expansion.
Okay. Well, it seems as though we've done that now.
or now,
Yeah,
that's fine.
yeah.
I just wanted to
Yeah,
recognize that here.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think there's quite a few fundraisers that have gone in the past few days. So I think every time we can take time to mention that, that's good, especially when it's something that's benefiting the local area. I'm impressed that a big company like McDonald's is doing interfacing locally as well. So that's good. Thank you. Okay, and we have an agenda moved and seconded. Do we have any other items to add? If we're not, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor? All opposed? And motion carried. Okay. Does anyone have any declarations? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the next item, which is the adoption of minutes. It's the Board of Directors meeting for September 8th, 2021.
So moved.
Thank you, Director Roberts. Seconded by Director Beckett. Do we have any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Okay, motion carried. All right, second off, we have the Electoral Area Directors Committee meeting for September 9th, 2021. Thank you, Director McNabb. Go ahead. So moved. Yeah. Do we have a seconder? Director Beckett, thank you. Any comments? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, that brings us to petitions, delegations, and presentations. I think we have a presentation for one Mr. John Thomas, who has been with us for 15 years, service recognition. Terry, is this something you'll be speaking to?
It is, for sure. So I'd just like to take this opportunity to recognize John Thomas for his 15 years of service with the Regional District. John started with the ACRD in the Environmental Services Department in September of 2006 and has provided support to various regional district services, including our water systems and landfills. His contributions over the years include water sampling, leachate testing, water system annual reporting, and some contractor support. And John, we'd just like to take a moment to thank you for your continued service at the Regional District.
Great. Thank you, everyone. I would like to thank the ACRD for the 15 years of many experiences. These include being involved in diverse and challenging projects and being immersed with local First Nation culture. I've been able to see many beautiful scenic areas and to meet friendly and compassionate people in all the communities within the ACRD. Finally, I appreciate being able to raise my son and have my family live in a community with such clean water and air to breathe. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you for that, Mr. Thomas. On behalf of the board, I'd like to thank you for your years of service. It's something that is not always common to make it like 15 years in a position. And that cumulative impact of positive work is very much appreciated. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other comments? I see none. Thank you, John. And here's to some more.
Thank you very much.
All righty. Okay, well, it doesn't look like we have any correspondence for action, although we do have one piece of correspondence for information, which has to do with Mount Waddington's regional district making a donation to Lytton in some way, shape, or form. I'm wondering if we can have a motion to receive. Director Cote, do you have a comment?
Thank you. Yeah, I'll make a motion to receive.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Shannon. And then follow-up comment, Director Cote, go ahead.
Thank you. I think this is a wonderful offering from a small community. And I'm sure that Lytton is suffering in an unimaginable way with losing everything there. And I'd like to propose a motion that we also contribute $3,413 to assist with that community moving forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for that motion, please? Thank you, Director Stair. Okay, is there any questions for follow-up? Comments? Dr. Shannon, go ahead.
Thank you. I just asked how that would work because my understanding from the letter was that it was directors personally making the donations. It's not coming out of a like it was collectively the directors got together to put it together is how they came up with it. I don't know if that's Director Cote's intent or where the intent was those funds might come from, just for clarification.
Through the chair, that's not my understanding. I believe it comes from the regional districts.
Yeah, the check looks like it's from the regional district itself.
Yes.
Is there a reason that it's 3,413? Is that just a number they came up with? Go ahead.
I think that's the amount of people that were displaced,
Oh, okay.
the population of Lytton.
Okay. Dr. Shannon, go ahead.
Thank you. In the letter, it says to help Lytton rebuild, the electoral area directors of the RDMW will contribute $1 for every person in their representative areas. In doing so, the electoral area directors of the RDMW wish to challenge all other local governments to make a similar gesture. So that's where that number came from. And that's where I understood that it was the directors making the contribution. So that's where I was just curious for clarification on that motion.
Okay. There's a lot of unclear items in that paragraph, though, because for some reason I thought it was one like what Director Cote had stated. Go ahead, Director Cote, you had a comment?
Thank you. Maybe we could refer this back to staff and they could bring forward some more information. And I was also going to ask if we have an area where we could actually get this funds from to contribute.
I think that's a prudent way to do it. Go ahead, Terry.
Yes, I think that's what we'll do. If we can bring this back to the October 13th meeting, we'll make sure I'm under the same understanding that's the population of Mount Waddington, and they're donating $1 per person from their area. So we can come back with some options to the October 13th meeting as to where this funding could come from.
Okay. Dr. Shannon, do you want to just move to table this to that date? Okay. Do we have a seconder? All right. Thank you, Dr. McNabb. All those in favor? All opposed? Okay, motion carried. Okay. Okay, that brings me to item 8A, which is the request for decision regarding the Alberni Valley Golf Club and Long Beach Recreation Cooperative Tax Exemption. Tricia, you just popped up. I'm assuming that's you, so please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So as you remember, the Alberni Valley Golf Club presented as a delegation on August 25th, requesting a tax exemption for 2022, as well the Long Beach Recreation Cooperative presented as a delegation on September 8th, also requesting a tax exemption for 2022. So just some background information, the 2021 property taxes for the Alberni Golf Club exemption was $17,278 based on their assessed values. And the ACRD component of that was $3,782. The Long Beach Recreation Cooperative exemption for 2021 was $8,268, and the ACRD component of the property tax was approximately $2,030. So attached are the letters that were presented, and as well as maps of the areas and a bylaw for your consideration.
Thank you so much for that. Director Cote and then Director McNabb.
Thank you. I'm very supportive of this motion going forward, but I have a question regarding the Long Beach recreational area with the golf course. I'm just wondering, is the campsite for profit? Thank you.
Through the chair, I'm not entirely sure if it is or not. I'm not sure if somebody else can speak to this.
I can take this, Jenny, if you like. So it is all into the society or the cooperative. The money all funds through there. So as much as it makes money, it doesn't get, it belongs into the society itself. So it does meet the criteria as a not-for-profit.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Director McNabb?
Button's not working. Okay, I would like to move that the Alberni Claycourt Regional District Board of Directors give first reading to bylaw cited as 2022 tax exemption bylaw F1153.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Cote. Any comments? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? The motion carried.
I move second reading.
Thank you, Director McNabb. Seconder? Thank you, Director McCarthy. Comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried.
And I would move third reading.
Thank you. Seconder? Thank you, Director Paulson. Okay. All those in favor? All opposed? The motion carried.
And I would move that the Alberni Claycourt Regional District Board of Directors adopt bylaw cited as 2022 tax exemption bylaw F1153.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Johnson. All those in favor? All opposed? Okay, motion carried. I really appreciate the camera setup. Everyone in the boardroom, I can clearly see who's voting for yay or nay. It's good. Okay, that brings us to item 8B, which is the payment processing policy amendment. This sounds like a Terry thing or a Tricia thing. Please go ahead.
I can take this one. Thanks,
Okay.
Mr. Chair. So staff have identified, or actually, first of all, I'll get to the credit card payment. So the TD has presented us with the option to have our credit cards automatically paid through our bank account. We only have one credit card that is over the $5,000 limit. And staff have run into issues in the past where the time it takes to receive the statement, to approve the charges, issue the check, have the check signed and sent to the bank, there are times when there is interest occurred because it goes past the payment date. So staff are proposing that the credit cards are automatically paid in order to avoid interest charges. In addition, staff have identified 3 main charges that are required to be automatically withdrawn from the ACRD bank accounts, which are the Municipal Pension Plan, Pacific Blue Cross, and Municipal Finance Authority. So staff are proposing that these payments be approved after they are paid. Currently, they are in conflict with the payment processing policy. So the intention is that they'll be paid and the invoices will be printed and signed for approval after the fact and then put into our system. So we have amended the payment processing policy to include these 2 changes for your consideration.
Okay.
So moved.
Thank you, Director Roberts. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Cote. Any comments or questions? I have one, and I think it's for, oh, sorry, Dr. McNabb, if you wanted to go first, go ahead.
I don't need to go first, but if you want. So I was wondering about the fire department ones. So are they over $5,000?
Through the chair, no, they are below $5,000.
Thank you.
So in regards to the credit cards, I foresee some payments could be, no, how do I say this? Not to say anything against staff, but are there accountability measures that we can maintain in order to make sure that certain things don't just get paid automatically without review, due process? I know this was a discussion that I had with Terry a year ago, 2 years ago, just to keep that up and just kind of refresh our memory as to what we can do to make sure that we stay on top of that stuff.
I've discussed it with the AP clerk. She mentioned just recently that this last month's statement didn't come until a week prior to the due date. So it does put quite the crunch on when considering that a board member does have to come into the office to sign. So I don't know if Terry wants to chime in on this topic as well.
Sure, if I can, Mr. Chair. So our credit card policy itself states that the employee using the credit card must have all of those receipts provided in a timely manner for those statements. So as much as the charge itself or the payment would go through right away, there's still going to be the accountability that they need to get all of those receipts in and signed and approved by their appropriate manager. And so as soon as that does not happen for 1 month, we actually revoke the credit cards. So, and this process would also have the same oversight that we do now with a check, in that the CFO and the CAO will be reviewing all payments, including these credit cards, after the fact. It wouldn't obviously be able to do anything about the charge, but at this point, the charge has already occurred either way. But there is mechanisms very clearly laid out in the policy of when a credit card is to be removed from someone's possession.
Yeah. Okay, and that was just the accountability question I was looking to ask. So, okay, are there any further questions? Comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? And motion carried. Okay, that brings us to item C, which is the ACRD Communications Coordinator position.
Mr. Chair, I can speak to this. So as part of the 2021 to 2025 Regional District Financial Plan adopted by the board in March of 2021, the Board of Directors approved the creation of a new full-time communications coordinator position to start January of 2022. As the communications coordinator position is part of 2022 budget, we have brought this forward for consideration and approval by the board in order for staff to move forward with the recruitment process. This position will be a key position at an approximate annual salary of $99,000, including benefits. A communications coordinator will provide the regional district with communications and marketing support and strategies, and this has been identified as part of the board's strategic priority communications and engagement. Oh, sorry, are you having trouble hearing me?
I could hear you. I have earphones though, but next time,
okay.
Yeah, next time a bit louder.
I have to lean over my computer. So basically, we're here to get board approval, and if staff or the board approves this, we will commence the process in mid-October, November, in order to have this position in place at the beginning of January 2022. If there's any questions, that we can still answer.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments, questions, or motions?
I would like to make the recommendation that the Alberni-Glycod Regional District Board of Directors approve the permanent full-time position of Communications Coordinator effective January 1, 2022 at an estimated annual cost of $99,000, including benefits.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Johnson. Okay, comments or questions? Director Cote, please go ahead.
Thank you. Is there a probation time attached to this contract? Thank you.
Yes, there is. There is a probationary period built into the QP collective agreement.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Okay. Motion carried. Thank you so much. Okay, that brings us to item D, which is the BC Transit 3-year expansion initiative, or 3-year expansion initiatives, however to read that one out. I don't
Thank
know
you,
who's
Mr.
covering
Chair.
that off. Oh, sorry, Jenny, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, so this is our 3-year confirmation of our plans for expansion for transit that we do every year with BC Transit. On the schedule for the next 3 years is that we are looking at the West Coast transit system, which will be started, and we're hoping to have that in the fall. We do have a presentation from Transit. Transit will be coming to the West Coast Committee on October 6th, so they'll be able to provide more details on that. The one positive to note, though, is that as the costs and more information has become available, we are seeing that our expected price has actually dropped a bit. I think it was in the range of 460,000, and it's gone down to 418 as our municipal portion. The other expansion is on Handy Dart for conventional transit. So we're looking at over the next 2 years, each year, to have an expansion. Additional taxi savers of just about the cost of about $2,000 is our municipal share. And then the following year, another $2,000 for weekend service on Saturdays. And we also have in this report a resolution that we're looking to basically write a letter to confirm our interest in doing our future plan, which will again look at other expansions for the Alberni Valley, but specifically as well as regional transit connections, which is something the board has expressed interest in. If there's any questions?
Go ahead, Director Roberts.
Yeah, thanks through the chair. I note that as part of the proposed conventional expansion initiatives, there's an estimated annual net municipal share of $418,003. I'm hoping that when the transit people from BC Transit come to give us an explanation, they can give us an actual breakdown of the cost for each municipality in this regard. Thank you.
Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead, Director Cote.
Thank you. I'll make the motion that the Alberni Regional District Board of Directors confirm the BC Transit 3-year expansion initiatives 2022-2023 to 2024-25 and sign the letter from BC Transit dated August 26, 21. Do you want the other part with this as well?
I think they're separate, so we'll keep them separate. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Any further comments? Okay, seeing none, all those. Oh, Director McNabb, go ahead.
Sorry, is this the transit one?
Yeah, it's the first motion.
Okay, so one question I had with this is the ability and the on equipment basis for our local taxi to actually fulfill this. As far as I know, unless something's changed, and it could have because I don't follow them like that, but I think they only have one wheelchair accessible taxi. And I'm concerned that they don't have the depth of equipment to make this work like it would be working underneath a regular custom transit vehicle.
Through the chair, that's a valid point. I actually don't know. I have to look into that, but I can look into that and get back to you. I do. I suspect that unfortunately Eddie's not here and he is up to speed on transit. But I suspect that they would have taken that into consideration when they're looking at doing the expansion, which will be for the next annual year. But I can definitely confirm that and get back to you.
Go ahead, Dr. McNabb.
Yeah, so I would like that to be a point, because otherwise they're going to have to, if they want to be a part of this project, they need to be equipped to facilitate it. As I know, we've had previous complaints with regards to taxi pickup versus custom transit pickup, and it's been around equipment. You know, trying to fit somebody in the back of a Prius when they're in a wheelchair or something is not the easiest thing.
Okay. Any further comments or questions? Let's see. Go ahead.
So is there a possibility to defer this to our next meeting timeline wise without stirring the mud up to get the answer to that question, or see if there's a remedy?
They are wanting a response by the end of September, but we could invite them to, like, this is just for them to apply for the provincial portion of the funding, but we could invite them to the next AV&B to discuss the custom transit service and these potential expansions, and put that in our response letter that that is one of our concerns and would like them to be addressed. That works for you, directors?
Okay. Dr. Cote?
Thank you. I think that moving forward on this is not a bad thing to do because it's not immediate, but there's a possibility that the taxi service I think there's only one now, I'm not sure. But they may invest in a wheelchair capable vehicle moving forward. I know that they do replace vehicles quite regularly because they put a lot of miles on them. So I'd still like to move forward on this. Thanks.
I think that makes sense, especially if we do choose to go through and do it, then it's better to be in. And then if we choose to do something else, then we can always just pull out. Okay, any further comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Okay, motion carried. All right. Okay, Director Cote, go ahead.
Thank you. I'll make the second motion that the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors confirm the board's intent via a letter to BC Transit into conducting a transit future service plan in 2022 for the City of Port Alberni and the Alberni Valley electoral area directors or areas.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Johnson. Comments? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, that brings us to item E, which is the UBCM Community Resiliency Investment Program for the Fire Smart Grant. Hi, Heather. Welcome. Please go ahead.
Thank you. So the report is related to a grant opportunity from UBCM for Fire Smart activities in the regional district. So I'm proposing that we submit this grant application as a regional application, and I've invited the Hoopachesit and Sashot First Nations and the City of Port Alberni to partner with us. Each of those potential partners will be discussing this opportunity at their upcoming council meetings. There's $50,000 available per project partner. We received this Fire Smart grant in 2020, and we're still implementing this grant in the Alberni Valley and Bamfield. We were able to offer curbside pickup of yard waste. We've been doing Fire Smart assessments on residential properties. And we had a consultant complete Fire Smart assessments on critical government and First Nation infrastructure. We've done public education, and last week we did a wildfire tabletop exercise, which was all funded, 100% funded by UBCM. We've made some progress with the Fire Smart program, but there's much more work to do to get public buy-in. My personal opinion is that this Fire Smart funding will probably be around for several years, given the wildfire situation this year. So the 2020 grant, the upcoming one that's due in October, we anticipate to apply for funding to do the curbside pickup program again, public education, Fire Smart assessments and rebates, training opportunities, as well as Fire Smart work on critical infrastructure that the regional district, city, and First Nations own, as well as a development of a community wildfire protection plan for the Long Beach electoral area. But what we actually apply for will depend on how many project partners we have in this grant and how much funding is available. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions? I think I saw Director Cote. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Could you give me some clarification, please, on who would be the applicants? Is it 4 applicants, or each electoral area is considered to be one of the applicants? So that would be.
No, so the regional district would be one project partner, and then Sept and Hupachesset and the city would be the other 3 partners. So together there's approximately $200,000 available.
Okay. Okay, so thank you for that presentation. Do we have any motions? Director Cote again?
Thank you. It just, it seems that the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District is quite a big area to be covering for FireSmart, with comparison to the Sept and the Hupachesset. The city is also a very large area, so I'm not sure how that would work for putting it all into one. Some of the rural areas are as big as each of the First Nations. So it's a little, I'm not sure how we'll work with them. Can I have some more clarification? Thanks.
Yeah, so there's 2 options. The regional district can submit a grant application on their own, or they can partner with other municipalities and First Nations. So there is that option of us going alone, but that's not really how we've designed the Alberni Valley Emergency Program. We are delivering this program as a shared service with the city of Port Alberni, and we'd like to include the First Nations where possible. So this has been our approach. I think this is good emergency planning when you plan at the community level. How the money is divvied up, you know, the FireSmart assessments, I would say the majority of them are occurring in the city of Port Alberni, so more resources are going that way. So it may not be, you know, completely divided up evenly, but I think this is the right approach, and I would encourage the board to consider a regional application.
Seems like there's a parallel in the approach, like with the work on the, I think it's the evacuation route conversation as well. So I think that sets a kind of the same kind of path. Okay. Are there any other questions or motions?
I have a question through the chair.
Oh, great. Please go ahead, Dr. Roberts.
Yeah, I'm in favor of this FireSmart program that Heather's talking about. My question is, I guess it goes along with Director Cote's comment. Who will oversee the program, and who, in fact, will be the designate to determine what areas are going to be covered by this program?
So the regional district will be the primary applicant, so the funds will funnel through us, and we will be responsible for delivering the program. How we do that needs to be done in partnership with each of the project partners. So we work closely with the city, and we'll work with the First Nations to figure out which projects we want to deliver and where. In the Long Beach electoral area, there is no community wildfire protection plan, so that's why we're proposing that, so that you are eligible for future grant opportunities. Right now, some of the work that we're doing in Alberni Valley and Banfield are not eligible for Long Beach because you need that primary community wildfire protection plan. So with that, Director Roberts, you'll be eligible for more grant opportunities next time.
Yeah, thanks, and I appreciate that comment. Will Mr. Starrett be overseeing and determining in the valley what areas, in fact, are going to be included in this program? Thank you.
No, to date, Charlie's been focused on our fire departments, and the Fire Smart program has been delivered through myself and Karen. Charlie is somewhat involved, but how we go forward will be a group effort with our project partners.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I would make that motion that the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors apply to the Union of BC Municipalities Community Resiliency Investment Program Fire Smart Grant with interested grant partners. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Paulson, for a second. Are there any comments? Dr. Cote.
Thank you. Through the chair, I have a question about Sprout Lake specifically and the eligibility of a Fire Smart grant regarding lot 950 and an escape route. I'm just wondering if there's other opportunities for grants that will be coming along similar, and I'm not sure if this one would have been a grant that could have been used for that. I have had conversations with Forest Lands and Natural Resources regarding lot 950 recently, trying to get a escape route, another road access into the peninsula past the Sprout Lake Landing, because there is only one way in and one way out. So if there's a fire that comes down the highway, then the access to more than 400 homes and however many people are cut off, because resources will not go in if that access is closed. So I'm wondering if there's another opportunity, or if this grant could be applied for besides this application. Thanks.
Thank you for the question, Penny. So lot 950, that property is not eligible for this particular grant opportunity. I'll make a couple suggestions. We're doing the evacuation route consultation with public right now. So I would encourage anybody that has concerns about evacuation exit points, routes, to bring that forward through the survey that's online right now, or through one of the community engagement sessions. And then the province also does some wildfire mitigation projects. They have a separate pot of money for that. I do not think that they have any active projects in the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District, Penny, but we could bring that forward as a potential idea.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So it's been moved by Dr. Robertson, seconded by Dr. Paulson. Are there any further comments or questions? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, that brings us to item F, which is the hole in the wall visitor attraction item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an update to the board on the hole in the wall. This has been on the board a few times before, and as the board knows, this is not currently an ACRD park asset. However, it is a concern due to the traffic and safety concerns, and so staff have been continuing to try and work on options for this. We've recently been in communication with the office of MLA Josie Osborne, who has offered to organize a stakeholder meeting, which will hopefully look for a solution that can work on addressing this issue. So staff are suggesting that we assign a staff member, which will be Michael McGregor, our Lands and Resource Coordinator, as well as one of the directors on the board, to attend this stakeholder meeting.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Bodner, please go ahead.
Yes, I was really pleased to see this, because I think this is way overdue, and it would, anything that we can meet with Mosaic or the other partners involved would be an asset for sure.
Dr. Cote?
Thank you. I'm really happy to see this coming forward. And I'd like to make the motion that Director Bodner, if she would be the director that we appoint.
Is
And-
that okay? Is that okay, Director Bodner?
Yes, I would accept that.
Okay, then I would make the motion. I
Okay.
can read it out if you want.
Yeah, we might as well.
Okay, that the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors, staff, and a Director Bodner to participate in a stakeholders meeting regarding the hole in the wall visitor attraction.
Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director McNabb. Any comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Great. I still haven't gone out there. I should. Okay. That brings us to the added item, which is actually on the agenda right now, which is the 8G burning regulation bylaws and communication plan. Alex, you're here. I'm assuming you're speaking to it, so please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have the two burning bylaws that were considered by the Electoral Area Directors Committee at the September 9th meeting and last considered by the board on June 9th of this year. Both of those reports are included for you on this agenda, detailing the agency and public input that we received, survey results for the entire region, and then broken down by electoral area as well, and the proposed amendments to the bylaws considering the input that we received. Now, at the September 9th meeting, the EA Directors Committee recommended that staff present a communication plan to build knowledge within the region about the regulations and to highlight the intent of implementing the burning restrictions. With this report, staff have presented a 5-point communication plan to be enacted in conjunction with the bylaws and a recommendation to adopt the amended bylaws with an effective date of November 1st. The late item that is presented for you is a referral response from the Port Alberni Air Quality Council. I do note that the board has previously received a referral from the Alberni Air Quality Society, and that the recommendations within both of those responses have been incorporated into the bylaws where appropriate. Happy to answer any questions anybody has. Thank you.
Any comments or questions? Dr. McNabb, then Director Cote, and then Dr. Shannon, or were you just moving?
So I would like to move the third reading of bylaw R1030 solid waste burning appliance emission regulation bylaw be rescinded.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Dr. Cote? And before we get to any votes, Dr. Cote, you had a comment?
I do, thank you. Through the chair, I talked with Mr. Erg this morning because I have concerns about the adopting this bylaw today. I believe that we should give it third reading as presented with the changes. But because there was so many people that were against this bylaw passing it, more than 50% in my area and also Beaver Creek, I'd like to get the information out before adoption. And we can do that by adopting third reading and moving on with the, I lost my notes. Like, here we go, not doing 4 and 8. So just not adopting at this meeting, but moving forward and get the communications out to the community regarding the changes that had happened, because I think that we'll have a much better presence received of this bylaw from the community if we do it in that order. So that would be my intent, to approve third reading, but postpone the adoption until the next meeting. And if Mr. Erg could explain what he told me today about the communications and how the timing would go. I don't believe that we will be put off at all by doing it in that order. Thank you.
Yeah, procedurally, you can stop it at the second or third reading and then have some time in between. With any bylaw, it contemplates an amount of time for contemplation of the suitability of the law between second and third. So this is not much different. So procedurally, it should be okay. I don't know if I'm taking words out of Mike's mouth at this point, but yeah, Mike, please go ahead.
Yep. So procedurally, that would be fine. The way the bylaw is drafted, it would take effect November 1st. I would also note that staff's recommendation is that the board adopt this bylaw and the communication plan. This has been before the board a number of times for the board to consider. We've done the survey, and you know, from staff's perspective, one of the reasons we're recommending that this bylaw be adopted is really based on the health implications for residents. So, you know, one of the things we noted is that we had over 200 respondents to the survey say that they either had respiratory illness or lived with somebody with respiratory illness, and you know, really any reduction of emissions, smoke emissions, is going to improve air quality and improve people's health. You know, and I just would also remind the director that the medical health officer for quite a number of years, I would think the last 6 years, has been recommending that the board adopt this bylaw. So that's something I think is important for me to say. Procedurally, you know, the board can, you know, pass any of the motions or not that they wish. If the process that Director Cote is talking about was to take it, you know, rescind current third reading, amend it, give third reading as presented, but not adopt the bylaw, we would, you know, staff could then take the communications plan that's presented, get the advertising out, bring the bylaw back in October for the board to consider adoption. If the board adopts it in October, it would still take effect November 1st. So I wanted to explain those things to the board and then see if there's any other comments or debate for the directors to have. Thank you.
Go ahead, Director Cote.
Thank you. I agree that this is needed. I am one of those people that has suffered from asthma in the past, and smoke does affect me. So I'm really happy to see this going forward on November the 1st. It's just that I think that in my mind, I just see it as due diligence that we only pass the third and bring it back to the community with the changes, because they didn't see the changes. All they saw was what was put in the survey and the bylaw as it was written to begin with, but there has been a couple of changes. So I'd just like to put that out to the community. So, and the only reason why is because of how unpopular the bylaw was in the survey. So, and I believe that the changes have addressed part of this negativity that was put towards it. So I'd just like to publicize that before we actually adopt it. But the adoption would still bring the bylaw into effect November the 1st. That makes no difference. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, so I think that case has been made. Let's just go through the motions and see what happens at that point. So,
if I may, through the chair.
Oh yes, please go ahead.
I would like to hear from other directors on the West Coast, Director Steer and Johnson and McCarthy, what their thoughts are, and also Director Beckett, because these other communities are on the ocean, and I'd like to hear what their comments are with regards to the bylaw. Thank you.
I think I got the full thing there. So I think I heard Steer, Johnson, McCarthy, and Beckett. So if you would, please go ahead, Director Steer.
Yeah. I don't have a lot to follow up on that. I believe a lot of the issues were centered around in the Alberni Valley. I do certainly support the medical health recommendations for air quality. That is certainly important. I know that the issue comes up in the municipality of Tofino and the district of, and that these questions have been come out before. We just adopted a beach burning bylaw to address some of those issues that were related to smoke and those particular respiratory problems that we're encountering for some people. So I don't have particular comment on this particular bylaw itself, other than to say that I do support it in principle for sure. And I'd like to hear from maybe some of the other directors.
Okay, thank you. So I'll go to Director Johnson and then Director McCarthy. And then
Thanks.
Director Cole.
I actually am a person that has breathing issues, so I am fully in support of burning bylaws myself. We don't have much. I live in the district of Ucluelet, so I just follow whatever Ucluelet comes up with. But out at Macoa, it's something we need to look at for sure.
Thank you. Director McCarthy, any comments?
No, other than I just sort of support what's being put in front of us. I know, I do live on the West Coast, so we don't face as much here, but I do have family members that do suffer from smoke. My new grandson has a problem with breathing when they had that fire within the interior of BC and stuff, so that did affect him. So I do support this in principle.
Thank you. Okay, and then I think there was two left. We have Director Beckett and then Director Cole.
Thank you. Well, I think we all recall that Banfield already benefits by having a burning bylaw in effect. I think that as Director McNabb has said numerous times, it's time that we show our leadership and move this forward. My thoughts would be that the proposal or the amendment that Director Code is suggesting, it's fine. You know, given that you're still looking at adopting at our next meeting, put into effect November 1st. And my thought again comes back to the leadership and the responsibility of those of us who have been, you know, elected to do this job. And my thought would be is that we pass the bylaw today and use the appropriate time before November 1st to communicate what those changes are and what the benefits to our communities will be. Those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thanks. And I think lastly, we have Director Cole, and then anyone who has any comments. Please go ahead. Oh, you.
Sorry, can you hear me? I'm just taking my picture off because I'm getting really garbled. I don't know if you'll be able to hear me if my picture's on.
Yeah, I would keep your video off. You're garbled a bit, but we can still hear you. So keep your video off. It sounds like you're
Can you
on.
hear me fine?
Can hear you better now. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. Okay, yeah, I'm having troubles today. The good news is we're getting high speed here in the next month, so it'll be better. Yeah, so just as far as keeping things, I think it was important for us to make the decisions we made here in the district with our, you know, the yard burning and such, and for the purposes of air quality. We did it without offering sort of fulsome solutions to some of the problems that we then created by banning some of what's been done for ages. And one of the things that came up was that, well, people will just take just like my husband will take our yard waste over to his dad's in Area C, and it's just going to be burned there anyways. So I know that we supported it here as well.
Okay. Okay, so with that in mind, the first motion. Oh, Director McNabb, please go ahead.
So I really think that this bylaw just fits right into our organics program. We've gone to a lot of expense to get this organics program up and rolling, and the ability for people to take their yard waste materials to the landfill in the regional districts and have them put into useful purpose rather than burned in the backyard and destroy their neighbor's environment. I think it just makes sense to get this thing rolling. I'm pretty sure I had a full head of hair and maybe even a beard when we started this. So I just, I can't see waiting another day. We've hashed it, rehashed it, represented it, we've modified it, and it's a living document. And it's not cast in stone. If things don't work out, we just bring back an amendment. So push the button, let's go. I'm ready to take whatever flack Beaver Creek people want to throw my way with regards to this. That's why they pay me the big bucks. And so I'm just, we got to make a decision. Let's go. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that. Is there any other comments? Dr. Cote, please go ahead.
Thank you. All due respect to the other directors, this really doesn't change anything. But in my perspective, I was elected by the people of my community, and I think that they deserve to have a communications plan rolled out to them before we adopt it. That's my only concern. I totally agree that we need this bylaw, and it won't change anything with the date of it rolling out for November the 1st. That does not change. What does change is that we postpone the adoption of it by one meeting, and we get that information out to the community because they haven't seen the changes that we've proposed. That's my only request here, that we just postpone the adoption by one meeting, and everything else stays the same, and the communication gets out to the residents that elected me to sit in this position. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll go to vote on the first motion, which is the third reading of R1030. Okay, it's been moved by Director McNabb, seconded by Director Cote. All those in favor? All opposed? Okay, motion carried. Okay, and then that brings us to the next motion, which is the amending motion.
So,
Dr. McNabb?
Just clarify where we are in the scale of these things.
Yeah.
I may be looking at the wrong page. I'm looking at the recommendation page on 54. Is that where we are?
Okay, sorry. I'm working off of page 3, just on the main.
Oh, I see. Okay,
yeah.
because I'm working off the agenda or off of the recommendation page.
Yeah, I just print off the first 6 pages of the agendas and work from that.
Okay, just for staff, do they align? The page 54 and the agenda front page, are they right?
Yes,
they do follow.
They are, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we moved the first one on page 53 or 54, that the third reading of bylaw, is that where we are? And
yeah,
so
that's rescinding the third reading.
Okay, so we're voting on that now or moving to the next one?
We've already voted.
Okay,
so the next one is the new amendment.
There's something about this bylaw, it just wants to confuse the world. Okay, so the next one is that bylaw R1030, solid fuel burning appliance emissions regulation bylaw be amended as presented.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Okay, thank you, Director Paulson. Are there any comments? Probably not. We've talked about this a lot. Okay, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried.
Now I'd move that bylaw R1030, solid waste burning appliance emissions regulation bylaw be given third reading as amended.
Okay. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Johnson.
Okay, so for Director Cote's comfort, I'll skip the next one and go to the third reading of bylaw.
Yes, we should do
R10
let's do the vote first. So all those in favor?
Oh, sorry.
All opposed? Yeah, motion carried.
So we'll go to third reading of bylaw R1032, outdoor burning smoke control regulation bylaw be rescinded.
Thank you for that, Dr. Mabs. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Cote. Okay, comments? Okay, all those in favor? All opposed? The motion carried. So just for
And
any... Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
So I would move that bylaw R1032, outdoor burning smoke control regulation bylaw be amended as presented.
Thank you, Director Cote, seconding. Okay, comments? Dr. Shannon, comment?
Thank you. I'm following along correctly here. We are going through this as per Director Cote's request right now.
Right now, yeah. So we're going through the motions that aren't adoption, because that's the idea.
Are we going to discuss this again today about adopting or not?
We can do it right after the other 6 are passed if we want to.
Okay. I will save my comments for when appropriate.
Yeah, like every director has the option to put forward a motion regardless. So this is just, let's get through these ones that we'll all agree on first and then go from there. Okay. So it's been moved by Dr. McNabb, seconded by Dr. Cote. This is the amending motion. So you have to rescind the old version, amend it, and then put it back on the table, which is what we're in the middle of doing. So all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried.
And I'd move that bylaw R1032, outdoor burning smoke control regulation bylaw be given third reading as amended.
Okay, thank you, Director Beckett. Comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, so then the next one that we would put on the table wouldn't be the adoption one, but the last one, which is the communication plan, I think. I don't think that's controversial. Thank you, Director McNabb.
I would move that the Board of Directors direct staff to conduct a burning regulation communication plan as presented.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Beckett. Okay, all those in favor? All opposed? Okay, motion carried. Okay, so Director Shannon, you wanted to have a conversation about? Yeah.
Thank you. This was a little bit muddled, so forgive me. Maybe if I should have jumped in earlier, but I am, how do I want to put this? I agree with Director Cote. I have to not delay this any longer, but at our committee meeting and at previous board meetings, I have spoken up that I would have liked to have seen this gone to our APCs again, because, and I'm not saying that needs to happen now. That's what I would have liked. Nobody agreed with me. That's okay. But the reason I wanted to do that was because an email went out to our APCs in April of 2020 regarding the burning bylaw. That was essentially at the beginning of the pandemic. And we've seen so much engagement because of this public survey that I really wanted a chance to go back to the APCs, because there was, from my understanding, minimal engagement because we didn't even see the emails that had come back from any of the APCs. So for due diligence in that part, I really wanted that to be part of our process again, just to be extra cautious because this is a big bylaw. And I just want to note in the communication plan, and this might be specific just to Beaufort, but I've had some conversations with Alex about this bylaw and how it works in fire protection areas versus areas where there's no fire protection, and enforcement differs a little bit. It's still there, but it looks a little bit different. And I would love for that to be clarified in our communications going out to this area. Just so everybody's clear, because I had questions and staff have answered them, and that's great. I just would like that to be not ambiguous for how I read it, so everybody's understanding the process, who complaints can be made to for those differences. Thank you.
Dr. McNabb, please go ahead.
So maybe Charlie Starr could fill us in on what percentage of Beaufort actually isn't covered by Beaver Creek or Cherry Creek. I know there's a significant amount of it that is covered, so it fits in this program anyhow.
Hi, Charlie, please go ahead.
Yeah, the highest populated areas of Beaufort is outside of fire service areas. So basically, if you go up Beaver Creek, everything beyond Wardrop Road past there, just slightly past there, is outside of fire protection area and the surrounding area. So the majority of the Beaufort residents are in no fire service area, unprotected. And the question there would be that BC Forest Service is going to be the one enforcing there.
Okay, is that is there a follow-up needed for that answer at all? No. Okay, so with that in mind, the suggestion that Director Shannon made doesn't sound like it requires an amendment to the communication plan, just as it's a clarification for making sure that it's just clear. And that sounds like the intention. Is that correct, Director Shannon?
Yes, thank you. Just, I mean, for a little bit more information, my conversations with Alex this morning, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, is areas where you're within the fire protection boundary. If you're filing a complaint or there's somebody coming in to check out a complaint, it can be a bylaw officer or fire chief or somebody with a fire within the volunteer fire department, whoever is written in the bylaw. If you're outside of a fire protection service area, because we're talking about enforcement and things like that, you would be just talking to the bylaw officer. And if there's a reason in a certain case to bring in the province, then that's what would happen there, because the fire service would only be attending to ones within those boundaries. And we're just talking about costs and taxpayers. So, I mean, for the general bylaw, for the burning bylaw that comes out of all 6 areas, if there's more work on the fire departments, that gets paid for by the taxpayers who receive the fire protection in those boundaries. So I was just looking for clarification on like who to call, how do we enforce this? And that's kind of how that's going to be working between in or out of the fire service boundary. And I just, because it's split in my area, I want that to be clear to my residents. And I agree, I don't think it needs an amendment, but I want that out there.
Okay, so in Huu-ay-aht land, we have kind of just a administrative follow-up directives, so that as long as it's well known that can be carried out. Is that kind of a similar situation here, that, you know, with that piece of advice, we can just make sure that's clarified as the communication plan gets implemented? Yeah,
yeah, we will include that in the
okay,
you know, some wording around that in the communication plan.
Okay.
And I have one more question if the directors don't have anything else with regard to this.
Please go ahead.
I just would like to clarify which meeting the directors would like us to bring this bylaw back for adoption. So there's 2 meetings in October, one on the 13th and one on the 27th. So we need to get this newsletter put together out. So I just wanted to clarify there was some discussion about bringing it back on the 13th. We're happy to do that. The public will be receiving some of the information, sort of some before, some will be receiving some of this after. The other option would be the 27th of October. I just want to be clear that when we bring it back, it's what the directors are asking for.
Yeah, I'm just going to stay out right that my preference is that it comes back to the next meeting. So in the event that there's some change that's needed, you do have the time to update, and we can pass it at the next meeting after the next meeting. Now it's probably not going to happen, but it just seems procedurally that's probably the right way to do it. And it does provide for 2 and a bit weeks of communication actively. It'll be on the directors who have an interest in seeing this interplay between the public and the organization to kind of curate some of that moving forward if need be. But if it's just something where we just need to communicate it clearly and then it can just pass at the next meeting, then that's probably the way to do it. That being said, directors do have the right to put the adoption motions on the floor now if they like. So just to keep that clear. Okay, so I think that takes us to planning matters pretty quickly here. Yep, okay, so that'll bring us to planning matters under 9.1. There's only 2 items for electoral area directors only. And then Tofino, Tom, if you could stick around for the next one, because that'll include you as well. Yeah, I think we're just going to power through. Normally I would contemplate some sort of break, but it's only 2:45, so I think we're okay. So the next item is 9.1A in regards to a Beaver Creek rezoning application. Mike or Alex?
I'd be happy to introduce. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a zoning amendment bylaw to rezone the property at 6411 Beaver Creek Road in order to facilitate a 2-lot subdivision. The bylaw was given 2nd and 3rd readings in the September 8th meeting. And all conditions of rezoning have now been satisfied and staff are recommending that the bylaw be adopted. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Yeah, Director McNabb, please, if you want to.
I would move that bylaw P1432, Regional District of Albany Clayoquot Zoning Atlas Amendment bylaw be adopted.
Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Shannon. Any further comment? Seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. All right, that brings us to the next item, which is a community petition from Sprout Lake.
Okay, at the August 23rd meeting, the board received a community petition signed by residents from a rural neighborhood on the Central Lake Road area in Sprout Lake, known locally as Little Germany. The petition was asking for the regional district to halt any ongoing rezoning applications for development. And at that meeting on August 23rd, the board directed planning staff to prepare a report with options for the board to consider. Staff have now presented a report and have recommended that the regional district pursue an amendment to the Sprout Lake official community plan to create a new rural Central Lake designation with policies that would maintain agricultural and rural residential uses in the area. It is recommended that this OCP amendment would be added to the work plan following the adoption of the updated zoning bylaw and would follow the formal bylaw amendment process, which will allow for a full community input and public hearing process. And then in the meantime, the board has the option to consider individual rezoning applications in the area on a case-by-case basis with the option to either approve or deny any application within the board's direction. And again, we're happy to answer any questions about that.
Okay, Director Cote, please go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair to staff, there's no mention of the water, the consideration of water in this report. This is a concern of the community out there, and I think that it's a very important one. With the increase in density, it will definitely put a strain on the water resource in that area. So I'd kindly ask that that be included in the report. I'm just wondering how this will affect waiting till the zoning bylaw is adopted, how this will affect applications that are in the queue now, because they are the reason why the community came forward with the concern about this increase in density and the change to their the culture out there. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Cote. So in the petitioner's letter, it is the opinion of the petitioners that the developments that are proposed will both change the rural character of the area and as you know, put a strain on the existing groundwater resources in the area. And I anticipate that the OCP amendment process would introduce policies around that in the OCP that would provide rationale for maintaining a rural residential and an agricultural focus on that area because of that. For in-stream applications, there are a number of options for the board. The applications like rezoning applications, OCP amendments, temporary use permits, development variances. These are all applications that the board has discretion to deny if they don't want, if there's community input or APC input that is against a proposal, or if the board has concerns with it. There's a process to defer a decision on an application, invite the applicants to speak at the next meeting, and then make a final decision on that. And at the staff level, that's what we would recommend the board do if there's any in-stream applications that the community and that the board have concerns with. That would be the process to follow. We do have the in-stream applications that we have that we're currently working on, or at various stages. 2 of them are waiting for an APC review, and that would be the first step in the process. The APC would make a recommendation to the board, and then the board would choose to either move that application forward or defer a decision on it and invite the applicants to speak. So staff would always recommend that the board continue to follow that process where appropriate. Hopefully that answers your question.
Could I just add a little bit? With any bylaw that the board considers, that it is completely within the board's discretion to adopt or not adopt a bylaw, or pass a reading or not pass the reading, and with specifically around planning and land use, community planning and zoning applications, the board can approve an application through adopting a bylaw or not, and the board has complete discretion at each reading to approve or deny an application. So and then whether something applies or doesn't with a community plan, there's also the option of amending the community plan, for example, if a certain type of application doesn't comply. So I think that is always out there as well, and that's just something it's important for the board to consider. And that's not the board's adoption or not of any bylaw isn't tied, legally tied to any input from either staff or public input. There are public input requirements that we must follow, with public hearings, notification, newspaper ads, those types of things. If we're at a certain stage in a development application that we have to follow. So I think it's really important that we stress that it is always the board's decision on moving forward or not with them. I do think it's important to note while we're having this discussion that what the ACRD has to do is consider applications made. So when the ACRD has a zoning bylaw, we must consider rezoning applications, and we must have a process for considering those rezoning applications. So that's our obligation. Staff are obligated to provide a planning report and good sound planning advice to the board, and the board ultimately takes all of the inputs that they receive and makes their decision on through the vote on how to proceed with a specific application. So that is something. I think the best way to deal with these in-stream applications. What we can't do is do something like the direction we have, the staff has, is to have this community amend the community plan. We can't defer in-stream rezoning applications for 18 months because we're going to be reviewing an OCP in the future. We must consider the application. So that's, I think I just want to be clear, there's a difference between considering the application and as opposed to obligated to approve it. So happy to answer any questions anybody has about this. But you're muted, John.
How about now? Okay, I hit the hardware mute by accident. I was going to ask a question about how this kind of feels like the a bit late in the game motions and conversations about cannabis that occurred not too long ago as well. So I think it's important to note exactly what you said, that this process can change things moving forward, but if any things exist now, they should be treated under the due process that we have. I do have a question about the water concerns. However, is this something that is even contemplated in our processes? Because I thought all those kind of water and agricultural concerns are governed by a provincial process, and like how do the twain meet, if at all?
I'm happy to answer that. So you're correct. Water is through either island health and or provincial agencies. It's regulated. We don't have a water service out in this area. If it was Beaver Creek, that's something different. But again, the zoning, in our planning reports, we will bring all of this information in. The public can bring information in. In the end, it's a land use decision. Is a change in the zoning to allow a new land use appropriate? Now, things like water and sewer capacity and capabilities always come into play, because from a practical perspective, can the land use happen if there isn't the capacity to service on site, for example? But I think it's important that with all of these applications, in the end, it is the land use that the board's dealing with, or potentially setbacks. But the discussion based on this petition relates specifically to the land use, and that's what the regional district would be approving or not approving.
Okay, it just seems like that's a communications aspect of jurisdiction that we need to have conversations about, so people are aware. I think that's where we're at. That being said, Dr. Cote, is the process still, or is what's in front of us still worth pursuing?
Through the chair, yes, I believe it is. And I'd like to make the recommendation that the board of directors direct staff to draft an amendment to the Sprout Lake official community plan to redesignate Central Lake Road area to rural Central Lake use, following the adoption of the updated ACRD zoning bylaw.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a seconder for this? Thank you, Director McNabb. Are there any other comments? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Yeah, motion carried. Okay, that brings us to 9.2, which is electoral area directors and Tofino. This is a zoning bylaw review project update and next steps.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the electoral area directors received a report on this project at their September 9th meeting. The report provided a preliminary look at the public survey results and discussion points on direction for next steps in APC engagement, public engagement, and a plan for public hearings. So the report presented for you today is based on that September 9th report with updated survey results and incorporating the recommendations provided by the EA Directors Committee for next steps on this project. The direction from the committee, highlighted in the recommendations in the report, indicated a desire for more in-person engagement with the area advisory planning commissions and public open houses where possible and in accordance with public health orders, and a desire for individual public hearings in each electoral area to consider the minor OCP amendments that are required to align with the updated zoning bylaw. I'll leave it at that and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thanks. Are there any comments or questions? So it looks like we have three separate motions. Director Roberts, please go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to make the motion that the ACRD Board of Directors direct staff to hold a joint Alberni Valley APC meeting and individual Banfield APC and Long Beach APC meetings via Zoom or hybrid in person if possible to review the bylaws.
Second, Director Cote. Thank you. Any comments? Director Cote, please go ahead.
Thank you. To the staff through the chair, thank you. I know this has been a long, drawn-out process, and it's been very difficult getting to the spot that we're at, but thank you very much. I think you're doing a wonderful job. Thanks.
Thanks for that. Okay, all those in favor? All opposed? Okay, motion carried.
Next item, that the ACRD Board of Directors direct staff to host an online or in-person hybrid, if possible, open house to allow an opportunity for the public to ask questions and provide additional input on the bylaws.
Thank you. Seconded by Director McNabb. Any comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Okay, motion carried.
Thirdly, that the ACRD Board of Directors direct staff to organize 7 public hearings to consider each of the 6 OCP amendment bylaws and the zoning bylaw at individual public hearings following first reading of the bylaws.
Thank you, Director McNabb. Okay, all those in, or comments, sorry. All those in favor? Motion carried. Yeah, all that work in 3 little motions. Yeah, definitely thank you for the work that's being done. This is a major endeavor, and I think it's something that we need to maybe celebrate when it's all over.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, that brings us to item 10.1, which are staff reports. Is there anything that anyone would like to pull out, including staff? Because I'm not seeing anything that necessarily needs to be spoken to the same way that Heather's reports on the EOC stuff needed to be.
Mr. Chair, I wouldn't mind just pulling out the update on strategic priority targets and capital projects.
Sounds good.
So
please go ahead.
this is the first time that we've reported back on these targets, and so always looking for input as to whether it's missing information or has information that you like, as we're trying to develop this reporting strategy. We are thinking that these will be presented to the board. They would be developed, your targets, each year during the financial planning process, and then we're thinking they would be reported back on 3 intervals in May, mostly just to kind of set them at that point, because we'll just be getting running with the financial plan again in September, and then at the last board meeting of the year, which is at the beginning of December, is kind of staff's idea. So looking for input as to whether you want increased frequency from that or anything else that you're looking to help. Let's move these targets along. That's everything from me.
Yeah, I'd be interested in hearing what the board would like to see, because I can see us having this on the agenda at the next meeting or the meeting after, just to allow for some digestion time. That being said, though, maybe we do a check-in together at the next meeting to see if we want to spend some specialized time on this in a committee of the whole or something like that. So let's check in next time and see what our plans might be. But maybe not next meeting, but the meeting after, the late meeting in October, maybe we, in our minds, pencil aside, 2 hours of a committee of the whole meeting in the morning, just in case. And if we don't use it, we don't use it, and that's fine. But I think a month's time, a month's leeway is going to be useful for our West Coast attendees to kind of plan for that if need be. Okay, that being said, I don't know that we need a motion for any of that. So could we have a motion to receive the reports? Thank you, Director Beckett, seconded by Director Shannon. Dr. Roberts, did you have a comment or was?
No, I was just hiding over here. Just going to second the motion.
Okay. All those in favor? All opposed? The motion carried. Okay, that brings us to member reports. There are no committee reports. 911 Corporation, Dr. McNabb.
We have a meeting on next Friday. And so I'll have a report for that.
Okay.
Thanks.
I had a question about 911, if that's okay.
Sure.
Because I live here, I noted a pretty notable story in the paper about someone who ended up having to wait quite a while for 911. Now, I'm not saying that this is any fault or anything like that, but is this something that can be addressed at the 911 corporation level, or is this something else like dispatch specific?
Well, it's not North Island 911's default there. The issue was that BC Ambulance, MCOM, who we contract, forwarded the call to BC Ambulance. BC Ambulance didn't have either available dispatch or available transportation in order to facilitate it. So they put the caller on hold. 18 minutes into that, we got a call from fire dispatch in order to get medical, the first responders to the scene. And so are there opportunities for us to work with BC Ambulance to improve this? I think so. It's going to be a topic of discussion at our meeting when we have our meeting. So it certainly is a concern. I think BC Ambulance really has to step up their dispatch and their response, and I think they're in the process of doing that. Unfortunately, situations like this really are unacceptable, and I think there's a way for them to work with us. We have to get the call actually from BC Ambulance before we can respond, because it goes from MCON to BC Ambulance, and then it's their baby, and it's not referred unless they refer it. So in Port Alberni, we've had at least one that I know of like this, and it was exactly the same problem, that it didn't get put out to Port Alberni Fire Department as a medical response, and so therefore the fire department didn't go, and so it's something that it has to be fixed, and we can be part of fixing it, and BC Ambulance has to be the major proponent to fix it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm starting to think that there's some pressure that we should be putting, and I'm assuming it's going to be on the province, in regards to resourcing and that sort of thing. I've been reading articles and hearing conversations from EMTs and folks who are in these kind of positions that it sounds like the resources aren't being managed well by the province, or there aren't enough resources, or both. So I think this is a symptom, and I don't really see 911 being at fault here as well.
Yeah, well, it's not. I mean, when you talk about 911, it's not just North Island 911. I mean, it's the system and the way it works. I mean, our part as far as North Island 911 is working excellent, but when it goes to MCOM and their response time is virtually perfect, and then it goes to BC Ambulance, and I mean, they've put a lot of effort into bringing this service up, BC Ambulance, and so I think Director Cole can attest to that. But the ramp up time between when they put the assets in and when they actually become effective is two different things. And we would like, and a letter will go from North Island 911 to BC Ambulance Service to offer our assistance in that threshold period, to see if we can have like an automatic response if there's medical emergency that we can assist in. And we're available. Most of our fire departments are available to do that, and but they've got the little magic button that they have to push to get that to happen. And if in this occasion it didn't, and in several other occasions that I'm aware of on the island it didn't. So I mean, they're pushed to the max. It's kind of like the school teachers, the nurse situation. Everybody's pushed to the max, and mistakes happen. And unfortunately, when we've got the ability to get that to work a little better, and we're not getting the notification, we're going to write a letter to them to express our concern and our ability to assist. Our meeting is on Friday, so.
Yeah, I don't want to put too much on anyway. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm going to do so anyway, Director Cole. What types of things should we be thinking about as a board, and what should we be pushing for? What are some solutions to this? Like, I know that this could be an outlier, but it really does seem like EMT equivalents, because I don't know the language and I don't want to offend anyone, are kind of overstressed, and I don't know what to advocate for other than more or better. But it seems like there's a fundamental limit on what we can achieve just by doing things better together. It seems like it's a question of just ultimate resourcing. We don't have to have the conversation now, but I'm interested in that conversation in the future, because I do see the pandemic and other situations like opioids putting a unique pressure on the system in ways that weren't contemplated before. So if you wanted to go ahead quickly, Dr. Cole.
I don't know if you can actually hear me properly. If you can hear me properly, I'll give a quick spin. Otherwise, I can follow up with everyone.
Oh, we can hear you.
Yeah, I don't think you can hear me because I can't hear you once I try to start talking.
You're actually pretty clear.
Oh,
Director
you can
Cole.
hear me? Okay, great.
Yeah.
So I will just tell you what I know, and actually hot off the press at excellent. Okay, so at 14:40 today, so while we're sitting here, I did receive an email about the updates with the timelines for new staffing models and new positions. So between November, to see upwards of 150 new people in positions in rural and remote communities and in the cities. There's going to be 30 of those are new dispatch positions. So when we're talking about the delays in call taking and dispatching, that 30 new dispatch positions. And I mean, I think the statistic was that we've had an increase in call the toxic drug situation. And then there was the heat dome and all of that. We've seen an increase in call volume above 30%. So when you expect a corporation or a service to be able to increase overnight their capacity by that much, I can see the challenges that have happened and the frustrations across the board, but I know that in order to put people in positions, they have to be hired, trained, allocated, and all the stuff that, so there's this delay of months, and it's sad that it's, a service that you can't really have a delay in minutes, days, weeks, or months, but I know that we're seeing 24 stations in the province are being converted from sort of the part-time-ish type thing or regular part-time thing that we do here in Ucluelet. 29 stations in the province are going full-time, and that is taking effect on October 29th. And that the rollouts of more stations to get up to the capacity that we have here, 85 new, so that's 85 new, more resources are being added to the program, but it's all going to be over the next couple of months.
Yeah.
So there's still going to be some lag time and delays in getting on everything we can added outside of, stop my mute now so that I can hear you.
Okay, well, thank you for the update. I think that sheds some light on things are looking to be improved over time. I just felt it was important to bring up that particular issue. So yeah, let's let's keep on top of this conversation moving into the future, because it does seem like it's still an acute issue, and we'll see if that's going to be improving things as time moves through. Sorry to everyone on the board. I just think it was everything we needed to have a conversation about to keep on top of it. The next report is the regional library. Director Cote.
Thank you. Through the chair, we have met the executive director, Ben Hyman, and he's coming from the university library, I believe. So excited to be working with him for the future, especially since we'll be looking at a strategic plan, revisiting that, because ours is about 10 years old. So that's exciting. Also, I see on the agenda, we have a meeting on Saturday, and on the agenda is under facilities is Tofino. So we'll be discussing them. New library out in Tofino. So, you have my support. That's all for now. Thanks.
There's something special about libraries. It's one of the only public spaces where you can exist without expecting to spend money. So there's a huge value there. That brings us to the Alberni Valley Chamber of Commerce. Are there any other members of the chamber who could present anything? Because I don't think Director Minions is here. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the Quality Council. Director Bodner.
Thank you to the chair. There was a short meeting held on the 16th of September. The wood stove exchange, there are 10 so far in 2021. There are new rebates that are starting September the 15th. The change is from $250 to $300, and the alternate fuel is $500 to $750, and wood stove to heat pump is $500 to $1,000. There are 9 purple monitors for MP 2.5 now in the valley, and that's about it.
That wood stove to heat pump incentive is quite good. That's just going from wood stove to like the best system pretty well. That's not bad.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for that. That brings us to the West Coast Aquatic Board. Director Steer.
Yeah, there's no scheduled board meeting, so no report to go with it. Thank you.
Okay, AVICC, Director Cote.
Thank you. No report.
Okay, Beaver Creek Water Advisory Committee, Director McNabb.
No, things are just kind of flowing along. We're good to go. So we've got a meeting coming up.
Thank you for that. West Island Woodlands Advisory Group. There hasn't been a meeting lately. There's one coming up. That's about as much as I can say at the moment. And the next item is Agricultural Development Committee. Director Shannon.
Thanks. We had a meeting yesterday morning. Kind of cool for our ADC meetings now. To be more inclusive of the Agriculture Advisory Committee. That committee is now receiving the agendas and minutes for our meetings, and they're invited to attend them to just get more information and just be more involved with what's going on in the development committee. New business from the agriculture is the Doc Plus is having a grand opening. All the directors should have received the invitation for that. I unfortunately cannot make it, but Director Cote has assured me that she can be there. I was really disappointed I couldn't make it, but there's quite strict requirements going in because there's going to be a minister from the province there. Everybody needs to be double vaccinated and have their vaccine passport. I don't have childcare, so my 4-year-old cannot come with me, therefore I cannot go. So unfortunate, but I know Penny is planning on going and Heather Show will be there from the ADC, so we'll have good representation there. Other than that, the fall fair went good for everybody this year. They were really happy with the turnout. They did a hybrid virtual and in person, and just kind of plugging along. Nothing really new besides that. We're still working on systems change project, but that's quite the big grant that's going to be taking a couple of years. So that's just Heather's working her way through all that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think that brings us to finally other reports. Are there any other reports, Director McNabb?
Oh, I on my Beaver Creek water report, I mean, I should have give a call out to our water staff. As you remember, on Friday night, we had a monster storm, and wouldn't you know, we had a water main break on Mackenzie Road. And so they were out there at 12:30 at night fixing this broken water main, pouring down rain, stormy, and they've got it repaired and back in service. I mean, we had water everywhere, but not a drop to drink out there for a while. So it's that this is the type of service that they provide to the Beaver Creek, and I just really thank them for that effort. And we had the lead hand was off on vacation as well, so it was just one of those moments that it's going to happen right then, and it did. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's good to hear that was dealt with. Okay. Are there any other reports, Dr. Cote?
Thank you. Through the chair to the directors, I did attend UBCM, and I'm not sure who else did. One of the biggest resolutions that came forward was the primer on the climate action. Ensuring local government financial resiliency. I'm sure we'll be hearing a lot more about that coming forward. And Director Jack, excellent presentation. It was great to see you out there. Very proud of you. You're doing doing well for us. So thank you. I can do a written summary of my experience through UBCM, and I'll just pass it out to directors. That way I'm not going to prolong this meeting anymore. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Maybe we can have an opportunity to discuss it or debrief at the next meeting as well. Just some lead time there.
I would just like to add to that there was a few follow-up things suggested from the minister meetings, and I was planning on bringing a report back to the October 13th board meeting, some letter writing recommendations and stuff to advance some of the topics. So we'll bring that and have an opportunity for the directors to discuss what they saw and heard at UBCM.
Okay, yeah, let's just have it in the same kind of section of the agenda so we can all have the same conversation close to one another. Dr. Shannon?
Thank you. Just back to UBCM. I was not able to attend everything, but I made sure I did my due diligence to be there for the resolution sessions. And I was just wondering, directors who have more experience with UBCM, all of the resolutions that we did not get to, it's my understanding that it goes to UBCM executive, and they just kind of make a decision. I guess my question is because there was a couple that we didn't get to that I really I had notes prepared to speak to. Is it appropriate for us to just email UBCM to voice that, or is there no opportunity to voice concerns or pro or con to something now that UBCM's over, or by the time I don't know when they make their decisions. So just looking for some, feedback.
Okay, Dr. Steer and then Dr. Cote.
Yeah, I would just say, Director Shannon, that it's always appropriate to be able to send that input into UBCM, especially to the executive in these situations. So your written submissions would be very important for them to have there. So at any time that would be important. So yeah, definitely go ahead and send that in.
Yeah. Dr. Cote.
Thank you. Anything that you'd like to follow up, there's a virtual library. So you can review any of the sessions through UBCM virtual library. So you'll be able to see how the resolution went, the ones that you missed, and any of the sessions that you didn't attend, you can actually go back and see. So you will be able to go back and see Director Jack, Chair Jack. Thanks.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be how things will look moving into the future too, which really makes it easier for directors and councillors whose lives are busier or they're just too far out to really realistically go to a UBCM when it's, you know, in the dead smack in the middle of like school time and that sort of thing as well. So that being said, yeah, I think any feedback you may send, I think maybe copy myself and staff so that we can see what you're saying as well, because I think we need to know what you're thinking on anything you might have input on, because that's, I think, how we're going to get in our way pretty easier, right, moving ahead. But yeah, go ahead.
So then a question, so if I have like my thoughts on resolutions and my way to vote to still include whether it's not the board's decision, should that come from my work email or personal email then? Still the work email.
I think
Does it really
it's just
matter?
easier. Have it all in one place. I don't think that's too much of a concern, because it's you as a director having your say in these resolutions. Because if you're just a private citizen, it doesn't really, they don't really take that. You can't hold the floor if you're not a delegate. So you'd be speaking as a delegate. Yeah. Okay. I think that's it for everyone. Could we have a motion to receive the reports, please? Thank you, Director McNabb and Director Shannon. All those in favor? All opposed? Okay, motion carried. All right, no unfinished business, no late business. Are there any questions or comments? Wendy?
Mr. Chair, so we do not have any public participating in person today. There were some participants via Zoom, but they're no longer with us, so no questions there. And also, there were no emails received to responses at acrd.bc.ca.
All right, thank you very much. So before we turn off the live broadcast, I'll read out the reasons why we're going in camera now. And that is for 3 specific reasons. This is a motion to close the meeting to the public as per the community charter under sections 91F, law enforcement. If the board considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the conduct of an investigation under or enforcement of an enactment. 91A, personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the regional district or another position appointed by the regional district. And 92B, the consideration of information received and held in confidence relating to negotiations between the regional district and a provincial government or the federal government or both, or between a provincial government or the federal government or both and a third party. And yeah, it's not in alphabetical order, so it must be according to our agenda items. So that being said, that is